On this week's full-time roundup, it's all about the Cups. We also take you through what happened midweek domestically, plus we get you ready for this weekend's fixtures as well. Predictions and all. Full-time roundup starts right now. Welcome in on a morning edition of Full-Time Roundup. I am in the driver's seat today, Daniel Brackett. Matt is across from me. Matt, how are you doing on an 8 o'clock on a Thursday?
Doing well. Usually we do these live in a coffee shop. I have not had any coffee yet this morning, so actually just rolled out of bed, and so we'll get this bad boy going. But good to see you as always. Sunny day here in Charlotte, and looking forward to talking about some footy as always.
Yeah, the weather has been amazing the last couple of days. What is it called? When the hour comes back is next week, I believe.
Savings time.
Daylight savings. It's very early. That's why I couldn't remember that. But that's coming back next week, which I'm looking forward to, just so the sun doesn't set at 6:30. And
which is still better than 5:30, by the way. So
it is. But just to show you our dedication to you fans and to the game, we're waking up, working around schedules here at crack of dawn in the morning. So just wanted to give ourselves a little shout out here. But there was a lot of, games that took place this, midweek. So let's go ahead and dive into it. And the first game that I wanted to kind of touch on here was this West Ham Brentford game. I mean, West Ham absolutely suplexed Brentford, and they've been on a run of 8 games without a win. West Ham have. So this game came into as a huge surprise for me.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of was a strange one, but given where Brentford have been of late, which we've talked about, and just their form hasn't been very good. But it was surprising that they put up 4 from a West Ham perspective. Of course, Jared Bowen with a hat trick and looked really good, and honestly been one of their star players for the year. Just consistently, and had to do a lot and play out of position every now and then, especially with Mikel Antonio not in the lineup for very much of the season of late. And then a big piece that came back from injury was Paqueta, who really kind of is the I would say the maestro of this West Ham team. Obviously, he plays that that more forward midfield role, similar to a Kevin De Bruyne or kind of a Phil Foden, if you will, for Man City. And he's been missed. The last 8 games he was out with an injury, and you could see either there was something missing, connecting the midfield to the forwards, or just lack of depth. And so it was nice to see him back. You want to see good players back on the pitch, and really a different team from what David Moyes' perspective than what we've seen of late. And again, a little bit of credit to them, but also a testament to just where Brentford are right now as well in their cycle for the year.
Yeah, Brentford are just such a weird team. They, they'll pull up with a rand. They're kind of like Wolves in a way, where they just you'll see a game, they'll look fantastic and they'll crush an opponent, and you're like, all right, well, Brentford's back. Thomas Frank, great manager. And then they had these weird runs where, Liverpool absolutely battered them, but then they keep it close with City. But then, a lot of people probably gave them, the favorites to win this game, and then they concede 3 goals in a matter of 20 minutes. So I'm not sure if Thomas Frank's, praise and he's going to go get a big job this summer ship has sailed. But especially with Tony being back the last 2 months, I'm starting to kind of rethink my Thomas Frank takes. Especially when he was lined, a lot of people were shouting him out for the Liverpool job. Absolutely not. But yeah, I'm just not impressed with them at the moment. And then I'm sure they're going to go and have a great performance this weekend and make me look dumb.
Well, they definitely are going to beat Chelsea. I've been saying that to buddies of mine all week. So that's going to happen, especially given how Chelsea played yesterday. We'll get to that later. But I'm indifferent on Thomas Frank. I think you mentioned Ivan Toney being out for significant, basically the entire first half of the season, with the betting suspension. And then you look at the lineup top to
Tune
bottom.
into our show, by the way.
Yep. Ivan Toney will not be there.
I wish.
That'd be pretty fun. But if you look at the lineup top to bottom, this lineup's not that good, Daniel. I mean, there's really no one here that stands out to me. Christian Norgard in the midfield, Danish national, Matthias Jensen. I mean, you're looking at these guys they're not anything special. And so he's doing the best that he can, with what he's got. Ivan Toney is clearly by far the most important player in this team. And he was out for an entire half of the season. So it's tough because we've talked about it before, and I've talked about it at length with a few other folks too, that I think Thomas Frank missed the boat on leaving and taking a bigger job when he had a chance. Brentford was top half of the table last season or the year before and had a really nice run, nice surprise after coming up from promotion, and just kind of was that hot name, doing things, that I think were really, really impressive. But then the longer that you're in the Premier League, the longer that your squad is not consistently adding the depth and the talent of the likes of the top half, it catches up with you. This is the hardest league in the world for a reason. And I think you're seeing that. I don't think that takes away from the type of manager he is, though. So it would be interesting to see kind of where he would land next. I do think something, again, that we've talked about, somewhere in the Bundesliga wouldn't be the end of the world for him. Even if he was able to move up, maybe a Newcastle takes a flyer on him. If Eddie Howe goes, that's an improvement of a roster for him from what he's using at Brentford. So something like that, where it's not a top tier team, but kind of that next level, mid-level team, and has some resources. I think you would see Thomas Frank develop back into that manager that we've seen more recently than of this season.
Yeah, I definitely think he should test the abroad waters. If I, had to be honest here, I don't think he should stay in the Premier League. But you mentioned a ship has sailed, and I'll tell you what ship has not sailed: Girona. We've been really hard on Girona. They've had some interesting results, I guess you could say, as of late, but they won big against Rayo Vallecano, and obviously the red card that was early in the second half definitely helped with that. But they looked back, they won 3-0, and they're right back where they started in second place.
Yeah, of course, 2 goals late, so the scoreline's a little skewed, right? Savio, the Manchester City player, got 2 in 90 plus to make it 3-0. So they still count. Don't get me wrong. That's part of the game, and so, but it was an interesting game, Daniel, from a just the way it played out. Of course, first half very, very cagey, 0-0 back and forth. Of course, Girona has the dominance in shots in this game as they're at home, and you expect them, especially with Rayo playing that very defensive-minded counter style that they play generally in the league. But I was surprised it took Girona 52 minutes to get on the board, and then once they did, that kind of brought Rayo out a little bit more, and Girona was able to play kind of what that style, that nice, some version of ticky-tacky that they're trying to play there. Not a full version of it, but they do play a little bit more passive.
Expansive football.
Expansive football for sure. And they kind of just dominated the second half. And it is a good bounce-back win for them. They needed one, especially given the last couple games. So I don't think they get the title still, but it's nice to see them continue to stay in the top 4 race. I know I said they were going to submarine
Crash
and plummet down.
Yeah.
And again, there's still a lot of time. There's still time. Because here's the deal, right? They play teams like Athletic Club and they lose. They play Real Madrid, they lose. And so those are the teams that they're going to have.
Time out. We have talked about this before.
Oh,
when
absolutely.
It comes to, they did lose to Real Madrid. But also when we also spin zoned at one time to Barcelona when they crushed Barcelona. They beat Atletico Madrid. So, it is a mixed bag. I will agree with that.
It is.
That.
It is. And they still have to play those teams again, too. And that's the thing. And they played Barcelona when Barcelona was atrocious, to be fair. So that's a different time now. And now there's different ramifications in the standings for when those two will play again. I'm just saying that when they play the top teams that they're supposed to be competing for in that top 4 spot, and even an Athletic Club who's 5th, they're not getting the points that they need more recently. And so that's the concern for me is how do they go up against a Real Betis, who they still have to play again? They have to play Athletic Club Madrid. They have to play Barcelona again. So that and that's without potentially dropping points to one of the other teams that could catch them. So that's at least potentially on paper three realistic. Not saying it's going to happen, but 3 realistic losses right there that you can genuinely say is a coin flip between those 3 games. And then again, can a Valencia catch them, on an off day or something, like not catch them on the table, but an off day and drop points there. Again, that's why I'm saying it's not as consistently safe bet as saying an Atletico Madrid or Barcelona finishing in the top 4. We'll see what happens. There's a long way to go.
Yeah, 7 points they're 7 points ahead from Atletico Madrid in 4th. They're 10 points from 5th. So I'm feeling pretty good about,
it's a tall order to lose it for sure. But I'm just saying it's not out of the realm of possibility.
Now, there was a couple things I thought about this match that was interesting. The first one was a tactical switch, and we'll get to this a little bit, in a different game that happened. But it seemed like Michel tweaked and played Sigankov at the 10. And he's played on the right, most of the time. But he played through the middle and scored a goal. And I thought that was a nice little tactical tweak. It seems like Girona and, teams were starting to figure them out a bit. And Dubovnik and Sigankov, the 2 Ukrainian players, kind of were at the start of the season probably the best players. Then Savio stepped in, for a while. And so I thought playing Sigankov through the middle with Savio and then Portu on the right was actually a really interesting, tactical switch. Plus, we're talking about Dubovnik, who's been fantastic this year, but he also missed like 3 sitters, which was very unlike him. So I'm feeling good about Girona still. And my last thing about Girona is really Savio. You mentioned those 2 goals. They were garbage time goals. I'll definitely concede that. I mean, it seemed like Rayo just kind of gave up and he was just on a tear. But that makes it 14 goals and assists in 26 games. I think it's 7-7 currently. How the hell did this guy not play for Troyes last year as they got relegated in Ligue 1? It blows my mind because he's been one of the best players in the entire La Liga this entire season. He's probably going to go to City.
Oh, he's done. It's already done.
It's done. He is going to City in the summer, and he couldn't even get minutes for a shitty Ligue 1 side. That's crazy, but it's a testament to show you that no matter what one manager thinks of you, you can always bounce back when another manager, another manager's trash is another manager's treasure type thing. It's really interesting to see. And we've seen that more as of late, but I always love shouting it out when it happens.
Sounds like you want to get your boots on, Daniel, and potentially find a manager that wants to bring you on. The sound of it.
They've been missing out. They've been missing out. I've been
it was interesting though. It was interesting though that you mentioned, the change in the formation. Of course, Savio does get the 2 goals though coming down the right hand side when that's usually where he plays. Right? Yeah, he has been on the left, but he likes playing down the right hand side. So even though they made this tactical switch in the game, when Stuani came on off the bench, for Dubravnik, Stuani can really only play up top. And so that kind of resets the lineup for what they've been playing. So it was interesting. It's definitely a testament to the manager that's seeing that he has to make changes. I think a lot of players and a lot of coaches are very set in their ways of staying in the same formation week over week. And it kind of gets, like you said, people can read tape or watch tape and figure out how to play against you. And so a little bit of a tweak here and there, as long as your players are comfortable making those changes, which sometimes they're not, especially if you're very set on the right foot or your left foot and et cetera, et cetera. But in this case, it was a nice little tweak and something that they could implement going throughout the season. You never know what that could look like and when that could be useful for them. So either way, I'm not set yet. But it's making it a little bit more challenging when they're 10 points clear with this many games to go. But we'll see what happens.
No, absolutely. And as we pivot to Serie A, there was actually a lot of action that happened this weekend or this midweek, slate. And we're gonna go ahead and start with Inter just because we're fresh off the win. Um, I believe we predicted this match
We
on
sure did.
Sunday,
We sure
and
did. I sure
congratulations,
did. I
you were
sure
right.
did.
And you do this once a week where you throw an absurd score line out there that I just genuinely cannot fathom, and that was this week's, and it panned out very well for you.
I
So
had three.
congratulations.
I had three technically, so actually Inter one up to me. But thank you, I appreciate that. You know, every now and then you just throw a random one out there, but this one felt like it. Again, Inter. This wasn't as random as it might have seemed for some others. I would never put 6 on the board for Napoli, which we'll get to in a second. But Inter playing the way they're playing, and they're just like I said, even on the show on Sunday, they're on a mission, and it just seems like there's no stopping them right now, and they're the best team in Italy by far. Now 12
Country
points
mile,
clear.
not even
Yeah,
close.
12 points clear now at the top. And so they really wanted to send a message, and now they're level on games with everybody. And so this was that last chance to really put the foot down and say, "Hey, this is ours to win." And that's why I felt they were going to, put a message out there, and they did. 4-0 against a very good Atalanta team, and it just, like I said, this is clearly the best team in Italy, and it's not even really in doubt.
No, it's not. Now I will say I was able to watch this match. Had the laptop on while I was watching.
On the
Liverpool and
Paramount.
Chelsea on the Paramount. Yes, because I was interested because I thought Inter rested a couple players, so I was like, all right, well, is a full strength Atalanta side going to be able to maybe give this Inter trouble who doesn't have Turam and doesn't have you know Kalahanglu and a couple players like that who have been just immense this season? And the answer was no. Carnesecchi, the Atalanta goalkeeper, I guess you could argue that he was kind of at fault for the first two goals. He made like a challenge and it went outside the box, and then it ended up,
That was
being
definitely his fault for
being a
sure.
goal. And then the second one was kind of the same, but it was like there was still action for 10 seconds before the goal happened. But Lautaro Martinez, absolute thunderbolt with his weak foot outside the box. I mean, when a striker is in form like that and everything they just touch turns to gold, it's really fun to watch. Excuse me. And he's just been so good. He missed a penalty and it still ended up being a goal. I mean, that's just how it's going for him. So I was disappointed in Atalanta's performance, but it seemed like it was really more individual errors plus a called off goal early in the game that really decided their fate.
Yeah, just for clarification, he missed the penalty and did not score, but it went
DeMarco
in.
scored,
DeMarco scored. Just want to
but
get that
still,
down there.
I
Yes,
mean,
no, I
when you miss a
totally agree.
penalty, it's like
Yeah,
how do that rarely happens
yeah,
with
no,
them.
absolutely. And that left foot of his, that strike was a great finish. You could even see Marcus Thuram's face. They did a little cutaway, I think, and he kind of was blown away by the finish itself. So we've talked about this man. He's just one of the best, most pure goal strikers right now in the world. Continues to show it. Now again, we'll see what happens. I think it's next week that Champions League is back, if not the week after. So we'll see
I
what
think
he
it's
can
next
do.
week.
What he can do against Atleti. That's really where they're going to need him. So we'll see what happens.
Yep, they're the most informed team in Europe. I'll say it. Don't really care. I genuinely believe it. And one last storyline from this game before we move on. You're doing really well when your manager is now being talked about for the Barcelonas, Real Madrids, big teams in the world. Inzaghi's still on contract till 2025. I think Inter are going to move fast and sign him up with a new deal again, a bumper contract, if you will. But he has proved so many doubters wrong, and he just outcoaches every single coach these days, and it's truly remarkable to see. So I really wanted to give my praise and flowers to Inzaghi here. But on another note, we talked about crush. You mentioned it earlier. Napoli might be back. Still not doing great in the table, but they absolutely annihilate Sassuolo 6-1. Osimhen with a hat trick. Kvaratskhelia gets in on the action with a brace. They have a somewhat new manager in Calzona. We talked about it before. But Sassuolo actually sacked their manager before this game. So I was thinking, all right, maybe this is going to be a new coach bounce at home. It's a good spot for Sassuolo. Not at all. Not even close. It was bad.
Very bad. Of course, Sassuolo does go up 1-0. And so you kind of wonder if that bounce is coming, especially given the way Napoli have played. They've been very poor all season long. Back, I don't know if I would go that far. They're still not going to make any noise in the table, but
that is correct.
There is a big matchup in the second leg against Barcelona coming up. So could they find a little bit of form for that and continue the run in that tournament? That I guess could be quantified as back if they make it a decent run there. But for the amount of talent that this team has, it's been a very, very disappointing season. Of course, we alluded to it earlier, the hangover from winning the title last year. At some point that needs to be removed, though. There's only so much grace you have from a hangover, if you will. So, ninth place right now, it's really disappointing to see. But it was nice to see them get on the board in the way that they did. And the players that you mentioned, getting a little bit of form. And again, if I'm Barcelona, I'm looking at the way that they played the second half of this game and saying, okay, that's more like the Napoli that we've seen. And we need to keep an eye out for this in case they come to the camp or Montjuic and do this to us. So we'll see what happens.
Fantastic pronunciation there, Matt. Osimhen scored a hat trick, got in on the action. Who scored a hat trick? Paulo Dybala for Roma.
Ageless wonder.
He's 30 years old, which is hard to believe for me, at least. I still remember when he was kicking at Juventus as like a semi wonder kid. But he's at 17 goals and assists this season, best statistical season since 17-18 at Juventus. They're 2 points behind a Europa spot, 4 points back from UCL, and De Rossi seems like the guy. He seems like the man, and we have talked about how former players, legends of clubs, come in and usually just absolutely suck. And he has done the opposite. They knocked out Feyenoord in the Europa League. They've absolutely climbed up the table. He replaced Jose Mourinho as well. This is not just some nobody who he replaced. He replaced one of the best coaches of all time and completely freshened the squad, and they just look like a completely different team. I mean, we're talking about a Roma who has 2 Leeds players who had an abysmal season last year, and now they look like completely new players under him. I'm just very impressed with what he's got going on.
Yeah, of course, only one loss to Inter since he's taken over after the Milan match.
And that was close.
And that was very close. 4-2 is not indicative of how that game played out. They've been very impressive. And now you mentioned only 4 points back from that UCL spot. I think if we're still talking about the race in that middle section, it's down to 3 teams. And, that Roma, Atalanta, and Bologna are really the teams fighting for those last 3 European spots in Italy. Although depending on what happens with teams, and we can get to that at a different date, might be 5 teams for Italy in Champions League. So we'll see what happens. But it's been very impressive. And he's always been a class player. And you just wondered, as we've seen, not every legend of the game has converted to a decent manager. And so it's been nice to see him come in. And of course, he was given a shot, not only because of his name, but because of what he's done previously at other clubs as well, a little bit, just to give him, a chance at his former club. And then luckily enough, it's worked out so far. And they've only done, like you said, climb the table. So we'll see how much further they can go. They have Monza this week, which will be, ideally pretty straightforward. And hopefully they can continue to climb. And then they have Brighton in the Europa League, which was a nice matchup going into it. But, with Matoma hurt, it seems like a little bit of a far stretch for a team like Brighton. So can Roma continue to run even in Europa League and continue that form there? And then they have a pretty decent slate of games. I mean, Fiorentina and then Sassuolo and Lecce right after, back to back. So you could theoretically look at this team as fourth place by April, as well as continuing to advance in Europe. So a big testament to Rossi and what he's doing with that squad.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's one more game that happened in Serie A. Serie A was very busy this midweek, and we had a pretty good clash here between Fiorentina and Lazio, both teams that we really haven't been able to get our finger on this entire season, but two fairly good teams, kind of a little bit higher than mid-table. But Fiorentina are able to, get the win over Lazio. They leapfrog them, and they're ahead by 1 point. And for a younger manager and Fiorentina's manager, this is a big win to kind of, get the best of Maurizio Sarri, who's a wonderful manager.
Yeah, you mentioned that both these teams are hard to gauge. They can't gauge themselves, I think, too. Of course, Lazio, they have a big matchup against Bayern in the second leg coming up. So that's, really their focus probably at this point, especially given where they are in the table. Fiorentina has been a consistent team for the last couple of seasons in the top half. We earlier in the season looked like they might take that leg up and maybe fight for a European spot. They're not out of it by any stretch. Only 3 points behind Roma, but I already mentioned they have that big matchup with Roma coming up, and Roma seems to have the schedule in their favor right now. So it seems like a little bit of a far cry for them to get in there. But again, they've been pretty consistently, in Europe of late. Of course, they're still in the Conference League as well, and they, could get into a European spot, but I would be hard pressed.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with that. They just don't have the juice. Neither team has the juice to kind of get over. And I'm kind of feeling pretty good about the top 4 spots that are, kind of.
Yeah, and just to put a finer point on it, like I said, Roma's schedule is Lecce, Sassuolo, and Fiorentina, and Fiorentina's is Atalanta, AC Milan. So a little different. And so that could be the stretch, the gap there that would take them out. But again, a good mid-table squad that, fills out the table.
Absolutely. It's cup time. Love it. Can't wait to talk about it. We have the FA Cup first. Just kind of going to go down the list here, and then we can kind of talk about games as we feel. But the Maidstone fairy tale ends, unfortunately, with a tough loss to Coventry. Coventry are a good championship side.
It was inevitable, though, wasn't it?
It was inevitable. We knew that this was probably going to happen. They actually had one of the more favorable matchups, though, I will say, with Coventry. So it's disappointing they couldn't, do the impossible there. But
it's so disappointing when someone can't do the impossible.
It's really unfortunate. Like I would love to fly, right now, but I can't, kind of like them. So Coventry, move on. Ellis Sims scores like at least a hat trick, if I remember correctly. This was on Tuesday before any of the other matches, but we wanted to just give out a shout out to Maidstone. I mean, you did the impossible last round, so
it was on Monday,
excuse me. We still love you, and we're sorry that happened to you, but good try, and we'll see you next year, hopefully. Next game that happened was Leicester, the championship number 1, who I've been extremely high on, upsetting Bournemouth. I guess you could call it an upset. Slightly underdogs here, upset Bournemouth in extra time. Any comments on this game?
A wonder goal. Heck of a strike. Left foot off the outside of the box. Top corner, no chance for the keeper. Little bit of concern, Daniel, for Bournemouth of late.
Yeah, I mean, they're a mid-table side, probably a little bit lesser than mid-table. A lot of people were backing them to get relegated, or like be near the relegation zone. They're not really. So this doesn't really surprise me. I feel like Iriola would need like multiple years to kind of actually, do something crazy. But I wouldn't say I'm worried, but their form has been not great as of late.
They haven't won a game in a month, and that was against Swansea. So
It's true. They're a very hot and cold team.
yeah, I mean they've drawn, they haven't lost every game, but they haven't outright won a game since January 25th, which is a little
It's not a
concerning.
good stat.
Not a good stat. So it is concerning. And they do get a nice potential option. If they lose to Burnley this weekend, then I think it's time to really.
That's panic button.
Really
That's panic button.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But, Leicester, I was really interested to see what they do in this match. I mean, Harrison on the betting show actually took Leicester in this match, so I was wanting to tune in just to see how that was going. I thought Bournemouth in regular time had some really, really, really good chances to put it away and just couldn't do it. And I went to extra time, and it seemed like they just kind of ran out of gas. I mean, Solanke didn't even play. They do have some injuries. I think the introduction of Tyler Adams in the next couple of weeks could really, boost the ranks there at Bournemouth. But I'm not pressing the panic button, but I'm also happy that my take was good about Leicester being legitimate. They look good. It was like a B lineup, and they still, I thought, tested their weight against a Premier League opponent. So I'm fairly happy on all fronts here.
Yeah, Championship side hasn't won the FA Cup in I think 40 years or so. So it'd be interesting to see if they can pull it off. Of course, we both think that they're a pretty decent Premier League side next year when they do get up. Obviously, it looks like they're going to get automatic promotion. So you do think that they're going to be at least a better than the top three, the bottom three that are in the Premier League right now. And of course, they've had Premier League success, not only just winning the title, of course, but just being usually a pretty consistent Prem team. So it'll be interesting to see. Now they do get who do they get in the next round? Oh, they get Chelsea in the next round. So probably win for them. And then they'll be on to the semifinals. So we'll see what happens.
Yep. I love when you're negative about your team. It's the best. Another game that happened was Newcastle. They played Blackburn Rovers. Sorry, I was blanking for a second. And I thought I was watching or witnessing Eddie Howe, getting the sack right after the game with that game. I mean, they dominated for the most part. They XG and they had the better chances, blah, blah, blah. I know you hate XG. I don't care. But yeah, they concede kind of late to go to extra time. They didn't look great in extra time, and penalties was kind of interesting. So I was like, is this Eddie's Howe? Like, is this the end? Because I literally said on Sunday's show, if they lose this game, he's definitely out. And so they survived. We'll see what they can do this weekend. But I wouldn't say that the vibes in the Newcastle camp are great.
No, definitely not great. I would not use great in this context. It's the cup though, and to your point, it's one of those things. They had to go on the road to Blackburn, which historically is not an easy place to play, whether they're in whatever division they're in. They're historically Blackburn Rovers have been a mega club wherever they've been, and they do have support there, and so it was a great environment. But yeah, it felt like Newcastle should have put this one away early, and credit to Blackburn for getting that equalizer about 10 minutes after Anthony Gordon scores and the place erupts. And you felt like this was going to come down to the keepers. Both keepers made unbelievable saves and throughout the game. Dubravka ultimately gets the better end of the Blackburn keeper, I forgot his name, in PKs and advance. And so that's, again, in these types of environments, in these type of tournaments, survive and advance. That's what you're looking for. And now they get a pretty difficult matchup against the next team that played in the week, and Manchester City, who steamrolled Luton 6-2. And so that's going to be an interesting matchup between Newcastle and Manchester City. I think, to your point, if Blackburn had beaten Newcastle, it's a much more difficult conversation for Eddie Howe than if he gets steamrolled by Manchester City in this round. So I think now pressure's off there a little bit. Need to get some form though in the league as they've been struggling as well. Another team that's been struggling in the league.
Yep, you mentioned steamrolled. Manchester certainly do that against Luton with 6 goals to 2. Holland, four
Five,
goals
five,
or five. Wait, five?
5 goals.
Shit, I completely missed that.
He has
Five
more. He
goals.
has more goals in that game than Marcus Rashford has all season.
That is true. I saw that tweet. And then Kevin De Bruyne happened to assist 4 of them. So that De Bruyne Holland link is once again heating up. I don't
It's
like it.
February. It's February. They
It's
said it's time to
February.
go. It's time to go,
Love it.
boys.
Love is in the air, and so is Kevin De Bruyne is serving up just beautiful assists to Holland. If you're wondering if Holland was back, the answer is yes. Now, my only critique of Holland is, I mean, yes, you scored 5 goals. Congratulations, you won a cookie, but you didn't do it in 5 minutes or whatever Lewandowski did. And so I saw a bunch of those memes going around. I don't know if you saw that. It was like Pep Guardiola on the phone. It's like Lewandowski's like, "What are you doing, Pep? Take him out, puta!" Like, because it's like he rattled off 3 in a row within like 6 minutes. So I thought that he was coming for that Lewandowski record when he scored 5 goals, and I believe it was like 8 to 12 minutes that time frame. Which, just to even mention, how the hell did he do that? But yeah, I'm scared. Luton, what were you thinking setting up that way? I don't understand it. Like, you basically just were practice cones for City at this point, playing, impressing them, just play the low block. They haven't been good recently. Why would you give them this momentum going into the weekend? I don't understand it, but it is what it is, Matt. I don't really care. Whatever.
Sounds like someone who knows that they've lost the title, but that's okay.
That is not true.
That's what it sounded like to me, but that's
We've
okay.
only lost 4 games, and we'll get to us in a second. But
Oh,
we
we will.
played 57, and we have lost 4 games. So there's no sweat here.
Well,
I just
apparently Inter's the team in form in Europe, though. So, it's hard to figure out. Either way, it was an interesting decision to play the way they did. Of course, you mentioned the momentum going into the weekend, and they will be playing Manchester United in the Manchester Derby, who, of course, played Nottingham Forest yesterday as the big game of the day. Two Premier League sides going head to head, although Wolves and Brighton as well. But Wolves kind of are always under the radar, and Brighton without Matoma seems to be more difficult. I continue to say that. I feel like it's a huge loss for them, and they lost this game to Wolves as well, 1-0, which wasn't much of a contest. 1 goal early in the game after a goalie blunder. Lamina puts the ball in the net off on the ground between the legs, and Wolves win 1-0. But Manchester United, like I said, Daniel, Nottingham Forest at Forest. We thought that this was going to be a huge one for Eric Ten Hag, just given the context of everything going on at the club. And of course, they play their rivals on the weekend who could ultimately do something similar to them that they did to Luton on Tuesday. So, bigger result here for United, or just kind of a result that you expected them to get, a late 1-0 winner from Casemiro?
I'm more interested in talking about the goal. That was Casemiro's goal, to be honest. I mean, Forest are not great. Manchester United should be at a standard where they win this game, no questions asked. Now, if they actually do that week in, week out, that's the question that we ask ourselves, which is probably no. But they do get the win, and it looked eerily similar to another goal that was actually called offsides this weekend with Liverpool. And I was fine with Liverpool's goal being called offsides, especially within the context of the Chelsea match in the EFL final. But all we have ever asked as fans, non-bias, is just for consistency. And, Liverpool's goal gets called off. Then you see on Sunday, Madrid's goal is not called off with interfering from an offside position. And then you see this is like, can we just make a decision on what offsides and interfering with play is so we can just call it the same every single time? I don't care either way. I just want things to be consistent.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. We all want consistency. I will say, and not because the result doesn't matter. It's not going to change the result. But Endo did set a pick, which is a little different than just standing there where Rudiger was for Madrid, and then in this instance where Casemiro comes across the player. So it's a little different scenario, but yes, that's all we asked for: consistency.
Apples to oranges, but like then you would have to define what is interfering with play. What is the
Oh
physical
no, for
motion of
sure.
a pick? That's like
And
kind
by the
of
way, and there were players, former players, that have said the Rudiger one historically, before the rule change, that would have been offside. So it's now a matter of what is the new definition of the rule. Again, like the rules have been changed in the last couple of years for determining that, and so there just needs to be the process of fleshing that out further and really making it consistent, similar to the handball rule. There's a lot of rules right now that are being changed and altered for the betterment of the game, supposedly, but has caused more consternation and more issues with their decisions. So either way, United probably should have won this game a lot easier than 1-0, but they get it done, and now they get to play your Liverpool, Daniel, in the next round.
they do, and it's going to be at Old Trafford, so should be a interesting
A little
affair.
different, a little different than at Anfield.
Yes, yeah, it's a lot quieter for sure. But we have unfinished business with Manchester United, especially how we drew in the Premier League. So honestly, if you could have given me any fixture for the FA Cup semifinal, I would have probably chosen this one. The only one I would not have wanted to play was Manchester City. So would have loved,
Wow.
not knocking you out of another tournament. So it was either Chelsea or Manchester United for me. Not interested in Coventry, not interested in Leicester, not interested in Newcastle. It's you two that I had my
Well,
target set on,
I
and I
like
got
to
what I want.
advance. I like to advance, so I would have taken Coventry in a heartbeat.
It's
If I were
fair,
you
but
guys,
sometimes
but
the road less traveled is the best road. So
well, maybe they'll
you know,
guys and get to the final for you, and you can have a cakewalk in the final against Coventry. We'll see, but
I'd
it'll be
love that.
interesting.
I'd appreciate that. But you touched on Liverpool, and you know, Klopp's kids do it again. They do it again. Never a doubt. I'm just kidding. I thought Southampton opened up the game looking really good, and it just was really about who's going to finish their chances. Eerily similar storylines from this weekend. Who's going to finish the chances? Who's going to have that cutting edge? Because I thought both teams played about the same to the 75th minute. Southampton had like 4 or 5 really good opportunities to go ahead, did not convert, and then Klopp's academy, La Axa kids stepped up in a big way. 2 18-year-old goal scorers on the score sheet, another with an assist. I'm just going to get on my soapbox for a second, Matt. I'm sorry. I know you've had to hear that a lot recently because of the final as well on Sunday. I don't think I could love this club right now more. Like we've been in a marriage for 15 years. You have your ups and downs with your significant other, and right now we're in an absolute renaissance of love here, especially with the kids and the farewell tour. I'm just having such a good time, and I'm just trying to soak in every single moment that I have left with Jurgen, because it's going to be hard no matter who we have as coach next year to just like draw a conclusion that every single game we're just going to win. I'm going to miss that. So hopefully we sign the right gaffer. But I mean, he just gives these kids beliefs, and then they go on and just drop masterclass performances where they have no business doing. And it's truly remarkable. Jaden Dan's a Liverpool born and bred kid, gets a brace. Bobby Clark has just put in shifts. I mean, we have around 5 to 7 youngsters who are playing significant minutes at this rate who, weren't even on loan since before. So I just, I'm going to get off my soapbox now, but I love what Klopp is doing, and this little renaissance with the kids is truly amazing for his last farewell season. It just feels different.
It feels different for sure. I think the difference between what you're talking about and what a team like Chelsea is, and we'll transition that way, but want to touch on this first, is, and you've heard this if you've been watching the shows across the networks and just kind of, hearing different takes from former players. These kids are uber talented. Let's not doubt that, first of all. It's clear they're obviously 16 years old playing at Anfield, 18 years old playing in cup finals. There's no doubt that they're talented. The difference here is that there is a way and a style that Jurgen Klopp wants to play from the top all the way down to the bottom.
Culture,
DNA, way of playing, the type of players that they're bringing in. You kind of jokingly said La Axia, similar to La Masia. And that's what you want to build when you're building a club. You want to build a team that you know exactly what you're getting. Even from the time you're 10 years old, you go into the academy to when you're called up your first game, whether it's 16, 18, 22, whatever it is, you're going to play that same way when you come into the first team. And it makes things a lot easier for these kids. You saw that in the Chelsea game on the weekend. They knew exactly how they wanted to play. It wasn't foreign to them. Of course, the stakes were high, but that's when you're lucky you have veterans like Van Dijk to kind of settle them down at some points in the game and kind of teach them. And, you could see the sideline helping them out during that game, trying to drag them out. When they got a little narrow, they brought them out, yelling at them to come wide. So again, the style is there. The system that Jurgen wants to play is there, and they're getting that training day in, day out from the time that they're 10 years old. So it's ingrained in their brain. And so when you're uber talented like these kids are, it's not too foreign for you, as opposed to a situation like Chelsea where you don't know what the hell is going on day to day, let alone from the time that you get there. And so it's a totally different mindset. And yes, I'm not discrediting the kids because they're fantastic. They've come in, they've looked composed, they've delivered, they've given you guys an opportunity to breathe for another week with this lineup and get some players healthy. I don't know if this is the lineup that you want to play against Manchester City on March 10th.
Absolutely not. No.
But they at least can maintain and keep the run going, until those guys get back. And luckily for you guys, it was Southampton, it was Chelsea, a weaker side. It is a little bit easier schedule right now, Prague and Europa League. So you have that luxury. We touched on that the other day. But yeah, I mean, this is not a surprise to me. It's surprising how well they've played. But again, when you're that talented and you have a manager like Klopp who's that encouraging and that much of a father figure in a way, at the end of the day, it's fantastic to watch, and it's going to be interesting to see who you guys replace him with.
It also, comes to the locker room too, right? Like, for example, Jarell Kwanzaa, the center back, English, 21, 20 years old. Haven't really heard a peep of him until this season. And this guy, he's 6'3". He just plays like with this elegance, like Virgil van Dijk has just like taken this kid under his wing for months now. And it's like they're just like a splitting image almost when it comes to how like their style of play. So just like little things like locker room tweaks and the senior players like showing the standard to these kids when they get into the first team, and they know what to do. It's like, it's not like they're like having to fit and adjust their style, like you said, to the senior team. But quickly, I just wanted to touch on Southampton as well. Their manager, I've been, fairly high on him. I haven't gotten to mention it much because we don't talk that much championship, but I was impressed with how they set up. I thought their build-up play was fairly impressive. I'm just a little disappointed, not as a Liverpool fan, completely unbiased here, that they didn't go for it. They didn't start Armstrong and Shea Adams, and I think if they did, then they probably would have won this game. So if I'm Southampton, I'm really putting all my chips in one basket here, and they didn't, which was, a little bit disappointing for a neutral perspective. But I think Russell Martin is a very interesting prospect as a coach.
We'll see what happens, and they're close to the promotion too. So could they get there? It'll be interesting to see. But
now we mentioned one side that was in the EFL Cup. Let's go to the other with Chelsea played Leeds. Yes, we do. We do. With the extra time winner. Mudryk playing through the 10. That was interesting. I thought, this was a B Leeds team, though. And this was a rather A squad for Chelsea. So a little bit concerning regarding how tight it was.
For those not watching, I'm nodding my head in agreement because this was just a really. I don't want to spend too much time on this. We've already gone pretty long, and we have a few things we want to catch up on
Yeah.
too. But um, this was really bad. Just gonna put that out there as the way to describe it. Poor performance, second half atrocious, absolutely atrocious. Should be almost ashamed of themselves the way they came out of the locker room the second half. This is getting concerning now that this is the second time in 3 days that they play this way. I don't think Maurizio Pochettino is trying them or telling them to play in a low block for 25 minutes and just concede possession at home. I hope not. If he is, get the hell out of here, because we were the Premier League side at home and it looked like we were a fourth tier team against Leeds. And so that's the big concern to me. Granted, we get the result, a huge goal from Conor Gallagher late in the 89th minute to seal it. But yeah, this was honestly, I'm concerned about Leicester. Leicester could easily beat us and could beat us pretty handily, if I'm being honest, if we play like this.
Wow. Yeah, it's a shame that Conor Gallagher couldn't do that on Sunday, but he was able to pop up in the FA Cup. Yeah, I don't. Chelsea are weird. I mean, obviously, there's probably a little bit of a hangover when it comes to losing and then playing, more than 90 minutes ET as well. So it was a very similar lineup to the EFL Cup. So
Sort of,
Liverpool,
yeah. No Colwell, no Chilwell to start. Cole
yeah, I mean
Palmer came
Palmer
in off
didn't
the
start.
bench.
I
Yeah,
mean, kind of,
no
but
Nkunku hurt, so slightly not our strongest lineup, but obviously we don't have a strong lineup even in our strongest lineup. So,
yeah,
you know, but
wins a win though, Matt. Don't worry
wins a
about it.
win, win in advance.
And the draws are pretty good for next next draw, so, or for the semifinals, excuse me. So I'm looking forward to that whenever that comes back. Now we have another cup real quick we want to touch on. The Copa del Rey. Real Sociedad get bounced by Mallorca. Last time Mallorca was in the Copa del Rey final. This might date you here, Matt. Samuel Eto'o was leading.
It'll date me,
the
then what does it do
line.
to you?
Well, I guess it dates me too, because I didn't even know that Samuel Eto'o played for Mallorca. I know he played for Everton, Chelsea, Barcelona.
There you go, the big one.
When I don't know if I missed other clubs here and there because he seemed to bounce around some Turkish side, but I don't remember ever hearing about his Mallorca days. Is this when the name of Eto'o kind of was established?
Again,
Did
I don't
you
know.
know this?
This is pre me too, so
This is
I
for
have no idea.
you? Oh my god!
It was either way. It's a great story. You wonder if the Spanish FA is very happy that Mallorca is there. Given who could potentially be in the final with the second other matchup today on a Thursday before. After we're recording this, so we'll keep you posted on Sunday how Athletic Club and Athletic get on. Of course, Athletic Club have the advantage going into the second leg with 1-0 in aggregate. You would have, again, at home, you would have liked to have seen maybe two big sides, Real Sociedad and Atletico Madrid, if you're the FA. But this is why the cup is the cup, and it's a great story that Mallorca are going to be playing in the final. Now, of course, a team in La Liga that sit close to the bottom and 4 points away from relegation battle, I think it is, or maybe a few more points, but either way, towards the bottom. And so it's a great story. And we've touched on Real Sociedad and how they haven't looked quite the same this season, of late. And it's just disappointing to see. They were kind of that team that we all thought could potentially give a good run in the Champions League. They were disappointing there. They were, or they're still in it, of course, but a little disappointing the way that they've played. And then also, in the league, they've been a little lackluster too. So it's not a surprise because any given day, anyone can beat anyone, but not the matchup that you'd like to see probably if you're the Spanish Federation. But bigger story for me on this side, Daniel, is going to be the matchup today that we're not going to be able to review. But I know you probably have it in the predictions. I haven't gone all the way down there yet, but bigger
I couldn't
story.
remember if we predicted it on Sunday or not. I couldn't remember.
Don't know if we did, but either way, let's just get a quick take on it here. Yeah, quick take. Yeah. Who advances for you, and if it is not Atleti Madrid, because again we have tough time pronouncing both of these teams when they're playing each other. Is it a bigger story than if Athletic Club win the tournament?
I'm back in Bilbao here. Um, Atleti on the road aren't as good. Um, so I'm going to back Athletic Bilbao to win this. They already have the aggregate. They're at home. They'll probably just play a very conservative style of football. So I'm going to go with them. How about you?
I don't want to agree with you.
Yeah, that's not
I
fun.
think Simeone finds a way
They're
to
your
get the road
darlings.
win. I know. I think Simeone finds a way. The one road performance that they need, they get. How about that?
Okay. I also thought the match itself was rather cagey, but Bryce Mendes missed a penalty early in the game in the first half, and then Mallorca scored soon after that. Mikel Orzabal, I think is how you pronounce it in the Spanish dialect, um, scored late to make it go to ET. There was an absolute wild double block from a defender on Mallorca, clears it off the line, volleys it, and then it comes right back at him, and he just blocks it with the chest. And I was like, oh my god, that's first of all how like it's just so unfortunate that the Real Sociedad player like hit it directly back at the guy. But what a double save! You would have thought he was a keeper. How he saved both of those. So absolute heroics, and then to win in penalties. Well done, Real or Mallorca. Real Sociedad, you've burned me yet again. I'm upset with you. I'm done with you. I'm tossing you aside this season. You're like a used toy. I'm done with you. But um, this is what we live for, the cup. So we're gonna just take a quick break. Um, and then we're gonna come back with a little discussion and some predictions real quick. Appreciate you sticking with us. Um, you know, we just started a new XI of the week out on every Tuesday on YouTube. The betting show will be out tonight. Subscribe, comment, like on YouTube, on X at Full-Time Roundup. Follow, interact with us. We'd love to hear from you, and for podcasting, rate us 5 stars and download episodes. Be right back. Welcome back. Thank you if you are still with us here. Just 2 quick things we wanted to get to before we hit the predictions is that Everton have gotten some points back in their in their points deduction. So I think it was moved from 10 points to 6 points. And so now they are comfortably away from the relegation zone for now. Because there's a second charge coming out. So we'll see how that goes.
Are they safe though? I guess as well. That's a
I
good
think
question
so.
that
It depends
I
on
mean,
the
now
extra.
they're 5 points clear. That's not safe by any stretch. Luton, are not bad. We've talked about it a few times now. Obviously, the way they played against Man City was not ideal, but I to me, Daniel, I don't know if 5 points is enough the way that Everton play, and especially given the fact that they could get more points, reduced. Now, the only good thing about this is Nottingham Forest are in the same boat, waiting for their own assessment, and the league in general is kind of just all over the place with these punishments. Manchester City, of course, is still waiting for their 115 charges. Could they be just demoted from the league altogether? Who knows? Chelsea have had an instance as well, but a little different case here where Chelsea self-reported and admitted to things happening during the Roman Abramovich era that were out of the new owner's control. So I don't know how much the league is going to, kind of look at that and punish them in that instance. I think it's a little different than kind of going through an investigation and finding that you covered things up. So we'll see what happens there. We'll see what happens. I mean, we knew that there was an appeal in place. You expected Everton to get some points back. Of course, they don't get all 10 back. But if you're Sean Dyche, this is good news. We touched on it as well on Sunday that, if you're Luton, you wanted to know sooner than later if Everton was the team that you're fighting, or if now you're fighting for somebody else. And so Newton, Nottingham Forest, who struggled of late, are your next victim up, 4 points of gap. So we'll see if Luton can cover that gap.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Another storyline that's coming across is Paul Pogba, 4-year ban when it comes to doping. It was nice knowing you, Paul. You gave us some good years, but you unfortunately did it to yourself. So end of a career that will leave a lot of people disappointed. But at the end of the day, his resume was still great with winning a World Cup, one of the best players on that World Cup team as well. That was Prime Paul. And then, you'll always have his Juventus days. Never, never really did what I wanted him to do at United, but as a United hater, I was okay with that. But just an uber talented lad who just couldn't hit, the standard that everyone wanted to have for him.
Totally different player for the national team than club. Like you said, of course, a World Cup winner, huge contributor to that squad. This is
Euro winner as well? No?
No.
No? Okay. Sorry.
No. Just really disappointing though, especially for, a young player like this. This news is just hitting as we're recording this, so it's still kind of determining the factors here. But looks like a 4-year ban. Like you said, kind of the end of the road at 30 years old, especially coming off a knee injury that's been hampering him for a while. But again, really disappointing. Uber talented kid, like you said, that really just didn't live up to the expectations at the club level. But a player that, whenever was ever in form, was arguably a world class talent. So you just hope that history looks at him in a positive light and as a World Cup winner and a potential unfortunate circumstance of the sport.
Yeah. But let's get to the best part of the show, predictions for this weekend. We're going to do very rapid because we are over an hour now. But I'm just going to shoot these at you. We'll go ahead and do it. All right. Starting off on Friday,
with a nap
Lazio
game.
Milan. Lazio Milan.
Starting
Well,
off
I think every
game.
Lazio is for you is a nap game, but Lazio Milan, let's hear it.
2-0 Milan.
2-0 Milan away. Okay, I like that. I'm going to go 1-1 here. Milan, Lazio. Monaco, PSG.
1-1.
I don't even know how to preface that. 1-1. Wow. So you shit on Rennes 2 days ago, but now you're on the Monaco bandwagon. I just can't get a pulse for you and PSG. I'm going to go 2-2. 2-2 here. 2-2 here. Yeah. Freiburg, Bayern, Munich. Some really good Friday games.
2-0 Freiburg.
Wow. I wish I could clip that. That is a bold take. I'm gonna go 2-1 Bayern. I hate it. I hate myself for saying that, but I just think they're gonna get the winning ways after that win against Leipzig. Manchester Derby.
6-0 City.
You're kidding me. Oh my God.
I am not.
Oh no. I'm going 4-0 City. Man, could be put in a blender if this does not go well for us. Athletic Club Barcelona after the Copa del Rey on Sunday.
2-1 Barcelona.
I'm going 2-0 Barcelona. I think after the midweek game could go to ET possibly. I think Athletic Club we're going to be tired. No Nico Williams as well because he got a red card in the last game. So I therefore am picking Barca. Atletico Madrid versus Betis.
Betis 1-0, especially after Atleti playing today.
You took what I was going to do. I'm going to go 1-1 now. Atletico Madrid can't back them at all. Atalanta Juve off a big loss.
Atalanta 2-0.
Wow. No Allegri for you. I'm going to go 1-1 here. Let's see here. Sorry. Napoli Juve. Wait, whoa. Atalanta. I messed that up. PSV Feyenoord. We'll come back to that.
PSV 2-0. Although this league was already wrapped up weeks ago, but I think PSV just make a statement victory here.
I'm gonna have to agree with you on that one. Portuguese League, Porto versus Benfica. This is huge for the title for Benfica. Must-win game.
The one game I don't have a rapid reaction to. Porto. 1-0.
Porto 1-0. I'm going to back Benfica here
Could have gone
to get
draw
a
here
1-0
too.
win. Or draw would probably. And to go back to Serie A, because I was thinking Juve twice. Atalanta plays Bologna. Excuse me.
Oh, that's a big matchup.
Big matchup. My fault.
2-2 draw.
2-2 draw. I'm gonna get 1-1 draw, but I'm agreeing with the draw here. And then Napoli play Juventus, which
Well, that changes things too. 2 big games there.
yeah, huge.
Napoli 3-1.
Wow, I'm giving Napoli a 1-0 win here. But I don't feel confident in that. But thank you guys for sticking with us throughout this whole morning episode. Like I said before, check out the XI of the week that I posted on YouTube. See if you agree with it. I added a few things, so we'll see if the rounders, if you will, like it. Follow us on Twitter at Fulltime Roundup, and subscribe, rate 5 stars, and download. Have a great weekend.